Hello and welcome to Reportage. This is Danish bin Nabi. I am joined by senior journalist and author Nilanjan Mukhopadhyay to talk about his new book, The Demolition, the Verdict, and the Temple, which is published by Speaking Tiger. It is a short, well-researched book on the Babri Masjid controversy of how basically the idols were placed inside the mosque in 1949 and how subsequently the Supreme Court of India in 2019 made it possible to build a temple over it. More from the author. So let's start with completely from a basic point. It's about the foundation of this Babri Masjid. Explain it for the viewers. Who built it? Was it Babur? Was it Aurangzeb? Or were it the Delhi Sultans who built this mosque?
As per the records which are there and also the stones which were there on the Babri Masjid outer walls, uh, it was actually constructed by a general of Babur under the orders of the Mughal emperor. That is what we know, and that is what believed before all kinds of historical distortions were brought into the entire narrative. Now it is, of course, a completely different kind of history than what used to be talked about and spoken about when this issue first surfaced in public discourse in the mid 1980s, around 84, 85, 86, that time when it first came. From that time, what used to be spoken about is completely different from what is now.
So, but explain to me another thing. If it was built during the times of Babur, why the masjid was built, the infrastructure of the masjid, it completely resembles with the infrastructure of the Delhi Sultans and not with the Mughal architecture.
No, I guess at that time you have to understand that 1528 is the believed date of the construction of the mosque, and the Babur made his presence in India only sometime 2 years prior to that. So the later full development of what you are talking about is the Mughal architecture did not exist at that point. So whatever was being built by them at that time was purely of what was available, the architectural trends of that period. And so naturally they kind of evolved from what was happening in the Delhi Sultanate years and thereafter even.
Absolutely, sir. Point taken. Now let's jump straight to your book. Let's skip the 1885 incident when the British government put their foot down and said no to anything. Let's jump directly to 1949 when the idols were placed inside the mosque. This 1949, and you have mentioned in the book that by-elections of 1948-49 in Faizabad, Ayodhya belt between the two men. One was on the Congress side and other on the Hindu Mahasabha. This was the Nehruvian times. Yet no action was taken by Nehru. Why did Nehru fail to stop this from happening?
You have to go back and actually try to visualize the situation from as if we are sitting in 1949 at that particular time. 1949 December, so practically it is over. We are talking about 1950, the month of January 1950, when some action could have been taken. The idol could have been removed from the Babri Masjid and the mosque could have been restored to the Muslims. At that time, what were the biggest challenges in front of Nehru? At that time, the biggest challenges were, of course, to stabilize the law and order situation in India. There was still communally volatile area. There was still a lot of problems going on in the Eastern Front. The question of resettlement of refugees was a big crisis at that point. India was also poised to become a republic at that point. There was also the case of, the Mahatma Gandhi assassination cases were going on. There was a ban on the RSS, so everything was in a state of fluidity and flux, so there was a lot of challenges in front of Nehru. As again, these macro challenges which were there was this problem of a certain mosque in Ayodhya, which was actually more known as Faizabad at that point, was there, where some people had actually mischievously sneaked into a mosque and, put the Hindu idol of Ram Lala there. So it would be a fairly smaller issue. So my sense is that Nehru decided to allow the local leadership to tackle the matter, even though he was not happy, as I have said in my book, that he was not happy on several occasions, and he wrote very strong and stern letters to Govind Vallabh Pant, who was the chief minister of Uttar Pradesh at that point. But I guess, that's one of the lines in my book, that he possibly decided to concede one battle in order to win the bigger war which he was fighting. So I think,
Import,
it's actually a question of, what did he prioritize?
Importantly, you also mention in the book that this Babri Masjid in 1949 was a local issue in Faizabad. It hadn't boomeranged on the national level. Maybe one of the reasons that's why it skipped Nehru's attention.
No, that is absolutely true. That the idol was put there, thereafter it was locked up, and twice a day it would be opened where the priest would go in and offer prayers, and everybody forgot about it. It was only after 12 years that the Muslim parties actually managed to muster courage to stake a claim on the Babri Masjid. The legal dispute continued. But in the political side, while we do find, and I give references in the book, to the RSS resolutions of 1959, talking about Mathura, talking about Varanasi, but they do not talk about Ayodhya at that point. Nobody is actually talking about building a Ram temple there in place of the Babri Masjid. It is not an issue. It is not part of the agenda of either the RSS or the Bharatiya Janata Sangh, at that particular time. It is only much later on in the 1984, after the Vishwa Hindu Parishad and the RSS
We will come
leadership,
to
wrote in
19
on the issue.
sir, we will come to 1984 after some time. But first, as the now this Hindutva brigade, they reclaim or they proclaim that Sardar Patel as one of their leaders. What was the role of Sardar Patel in 1949 when this controversy started?
No, I do not think that Sardar Patel personally had a very big role, as far as Ayodhya issue is concerned. Basically, it was being handled by the local leadership, which was headed by Govind Vallabh Pant, and they had a Congress, they had a local MLA who was there. And but more importantly, it was the district magistrate, Mr. K. Nair, who was actually playing mischief. So he was the one who had been part of the Hindu Mahasabha group, along with them. I mentioned in my book that how it was actually the plan was drawn up. Digvijay Nath, who was actually the spiritual grandfather of Yogi Adityanath, if I can actually use that word. It was the prior to Yogi Adityanath, the Mahant of the Gorakhpit in Gorakhpur was Mahant Avaidhyanath, and prior to him was Mahant Digvijay Nath, who was actually instrumental in drawing up the plan to install the idol inside the Babri Masjid, and that is how the local leadership of the Vishwa Hindu of the Hindu Mahasabha in Ayodhya was involved. A gentleman called Gopal Singh Visharad was involved. Some other local religious leaders were also involved in that, and they roped in various other people and to be able to go and install the idol.
So there was a minuscule or no role of Sardar Patel in this entire controversy.
I have not found, any major role of Sardar Patel in that. If something is actually slipping my memory, you have to pardon me for that, because it's been several years, since I finished writing this book, and the fact that since then so much more has happened in India that it's actually becoming humanly impossible to keep track of all that is happening without the kind of massive backup, which this government has.
Sir, I completely get your point. Now moving to 1980s. You are an authority on this Babri controversy, the entire episode since it has begun, and you have been writing consistently on this issue. In your view, when Rajiv Gandhi became the prime minister, in your view, do you think he should not have interfered in the Shah Bano case because his government's interference led to the appeasement of the other side? Should he have stayed out of this Shah Bano controversy?
No, I definitely think that the Rajiv Gandhi government had erred made a mistake by compromising with the conservative forces within the Muslim community and annulled the Supreme Court verdict on the Shah Bano case. Shah Bano case was definitely a very progressive judgment, and it should have been allowed to stay so that the Muslim women had better justice within the marriage system, that they could not be wronged. Proper, at least a basic amount of maintenance should have been given. So I think, there the Rajiv Gandhi government, made a huge monumental blunder. But I also do not buy the argument, which has been actually very steadily stated by a large number of people, that the unlocking of the Babri Masjid happened in reaction to what the government did on the Shah Bano case. Because the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, let me remind you, in September 1984, they had already taken out a yatra from Sitamarhi all the way to Delhi. It was called Ram Janki Rath Yatra, where they went to Ayodhya, they went to Lucknow, and then they came to Delhi. They were actually camping on the outskirts of Delhi in Ghaziabad district. Next morning, on the 31st of October, they were to go to Indira Gandhi and present her a memorandum to demand the liberation of the Babri Masjid of the Ram Janmabhoomi, and that it be handed over to the Hindu community so that they can build a big temple there. Now, Indira Gandhi got assassinated early in the morning on 31st of October, so all the plans went, haywire, and the city was put under curfew. Rioting began all over North India. So they went away and the movement collapsed. So in any case, there would have been a revival of the movement. After all, the Ram Janki Rath Yatra was taken out before the Shah Bano judgment had ever come. So let us not say that the Vishwa Hindu Parishad movement was started in response to the Shah Bano judgment. Whatever the Rajiv Gandhi.
Absolutely, point taken. But then in 1988, something big happens when this Ramayana comes on this Mahabharata, not Ramayana. Mahabharata is telecast on national television on every Sunday.
Ramayana, which started first, Mahabharata was later on. The first serial was actually Ramayana, where you had actors like Arun Govil, Deepika Chikalia. They played, the leading characters. So it was produced and directed by Ramanand Sagar, and it became a big hit.
A rallying point behind all this to demolish the masjid.
It became, you have to understand that it actually revived the cult, the story of the Ramayana cult in the public imagination. It became something which used to exist in the minds of people. The story of the Ramayana actually became a social narrative. It became something that people would watch. Those were the days when there were not many televisions, so a large number of places people would gather in the houses of one another, and then they would be watching television. In smaller towns and in smaller villages, there would be one community center where, along with about 100 people would possibly be sitting and watching it. So it became a kind of a mass assembly kind of a situation, listening to the Ramayana. So obviously, the story of Ramayana became very popular, and it was very easy to politically mobilize people in the name of Ram, and that is what exactly the Sangh Parivar did in 1988 and 89.
Sir, let me go back again here. Couldn't Rajiv Gandhi, because he was in thick of things in this 1988, 89, 87, couldn't he stop that serial that time? Couldn't he envision it, what this was all for?
No, I definitely think, that he possibly thought that he would be able to get all the communal forces on his side, that he thought that he would be, because he had nullified the Supreme Court judgment on the Shah Bano case, he thought that the Muslim conservatives would be backing him and his party. Likewise, he thought, as he had, his cousin Arun Nehru, who was actually also very close to the RSS, had convinced him that, look, if you open the lock and you allow the Hindus access to the Babri Masjid, you would be able to get the vote of the Hindu conservative forces also. The RSS can be rallied and to back you. Because you might remember, that in the 1984 elections, which was conducted after the assassination of Indira Gandhi. There had been several reports, and which was actually proven by later developments and facts that surfaced, that RSS has somehow or the other backed the Congress in the 1984 elections. That is the reason as to one of the reasons as to why the BJP did so miserably and won only 2 seats. Even Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee lost from Gwalior.
So, for argument's sake, even if Babur destroyed a temple in 1526 and built a masjid or a mosque at its place in Faizabad, was it important in 1980s, in 1992 to demolish this mosque?
No, certainly not, because in every country there are, if you start going into history and going back and back into it, you will obviously find very, violent chapters where various things of that particular time has been destroyed. Something which was there prior to the time when it was destroyed has always been there. Destruction is something which is very common to it. So the very fact, that saying, that because a mosque was built over a temple, and mind you, let me just put it here that even the Supreme Court did not establish and agree that a temple had indeed been destroyed or demolished in Ayodhya before building the Babri Masjid. There is no such evidence. There is also no such evidence that could be proven to show that a Ram temple existed at the site where the Babri Masjid stood. So, going back to it, that today you say that we want to, reverse history, in the sense that erase the memories of the bad memories of the past, by saying that they demolished our temple, so we will build a mosque there. They built a mosque in place of a temple. So they want to demolish the mosque and build another new temple. So tomorrow there can be a militant Buddhist movement to say that various Hindu temples which exist were actually built after demolishing our stupas. So we want our Buddhist temples to be given back to us. So we are going to demolish these Hindu structures which are there. It is very
So,
dangerous to keep on going
so
back into
I
history.
completely understand and get to a point. But I'm coming back to this point. Why was it then necessary to demolish this mosque? Was
It
it to
was
show
necessary.
Muslims their place in India?
It was actually a deliberate campaign of the Sangh Parivar to demolish the mosque. That was the basic objective of the Ayodhya agitation right from the beginning, to demolish it and actually, tell Muslims that we are so powerful that we can actually demolish a mosque of your community and you can do nothing about it. It was actually to humiliate the Muslims, and basically it was a very majoritarian attitude which actually led to the demolition of the Babri Masjid.
So then what about the secularism, which we have seen in last now over 50, 60, 70 years? Isn't
What
India a
about
secular
second?
state?
No, sorry, I didn't get your what are you asking?
What about if the Sangh Parivar, the RSS, had to show Muslims their place? What about secularism, the pluralistic society which Nehru had promised to the Muslims?
Well, obviously, the secular forces could not stand against the onslaught of the communal forces, the Hindu majoritarian forces led by Sangh Parivar. That is why they were able to mobilize support in their favor for the Ram temple agitation. And that is why they kept on making progress after progress. Even after demolition of the mosque, they have now actually reached a stage where they are now striking on the doors of the Gyanvapi Masjid, the Shahi Eidgah in Kash, Varanasi, and in Mathura, and in several other places. You have a temple mosque dispute going on in a fairly advanced stage deep down in Bangalore. Then you have the issue, in Bhojshala, Madhya Pradesh, near Indore. You also have pending cases claiming the existence of Jain temples in the Qutub Minar complex. So there's a demand for restoration of all these monuments and shrines and these mosques to the Hindu community. So we really do not know in today's India for how long and where all will this narrative be taken.
Sir, two important issues. which we see in last 1 to 2 weeks. First, the Gyanvapi Mosque has been given back and turned into a temple. It will be turned into a temple. A puja has been already done there. And then we saw in Uttarakhand, the UCC, they passed the resolution about the Uttarakhand, and sorry, about the UCC in Uttarakhand Assembly. What should Muslims do in such an atmosphere?
Well, Muslims have so far chosen the path of law, and I think that is the best thing, to do, that you have to continue, waging all battles in the court of law. We have to understand that what is happening in Varanasi very carefully. What has happened when you say that has been converted into the Gyanvapi Masjid has been converted into a Hindu temple, that is not exactly factually correct. It is like many other things, it's just another half truth. What is the matter is that there is a religious place called the Gyanvapi Masjid. In that masjid, it is still very much under the control of the Muslim community. As late as the last Friday, we are today on the 8th of February, we are talking, and as far as I know, on the 2nd of February, there was a Jummah ki namaz in the Gyanvapi Masjid. So, which means that it is still a functioning and a live, living masjid. It is an ancient structure which was built sometime in the 17th century, and there are
So
basements.
pardon me to intervene and pardon me to interfere. You are absolutely right. On Feb 2nd, there was a Friday prayers were offered, but wasn't the same case in Ayodhya in Babri Masjid? And after 70 years, don't you see what has happened? Can you guarantee it? Can you guarantee the entire thing would not be converted?
I'm no one to guarantee it. I'm not holding a brief for anybody. I'm just actually putting what is the factual position. What is happening is that, let us leave out Ayodhya at the moment. So we have the Gyanvapi Masjid. Now the Gyanvapi Masjid has basements. Now in the basement there are different portions, which are part of it. So there was one portion where, while the masjid was there would be Hindu prayers that were offered there. And these prayers continued through the 50s, 60s, 1970s, 80s, continued. It continued in a very bare manner. People went, did puja in the morning and evening, and came out. Some devotees went inside, some did not go inside. So there was a kind of an accommodative spirit between the Hindus and Muslims. They knew that this is actually a masjid from outside, but in its basement, there is some kind of a puja which goes on. And the people of Varanasi, of Kashi, were very happy with it. They did not fight among themselves before all this agitation in the light of Ayodhya started coming up. What happened is that in 93, after the first assembly elections were held, you would remember that the BJP government in Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan were dismissed after the demolition of the Babri Masjid. So in November 1993, elections were held in all the three states, along with Delhi also, which was given statehood. So at that time, what happened that the BJP won only Delhi and Rajasthan, where they could form a government, even though they did not have a majority of their own. But Mr. Bhairav Singh Shekhawat was able to form a government. In Madhya Pradesh and in Uttar Pradesh, the BJP lost very decisively. In Uttar Pradesh, because we are talking about Uttar Pradesh, there was an alliance between the Samajwadi Party and the Bahujan Samaj Party. And Mr. Mulayam Singh Yadav became the chief minister in the last week of November and first week of December. At that time, he became the chief minister of Uttar Pradesh. At that point, when he became the chief minister of Uttar Pradesh, the puja was still going on in the basement, in the structure which is known as the Gyanvapi Masjid even today. That Tehkhana or that basement was called Vyas Ji Ka Tehkhana. That is how it was called. Now, at that point, after becoming the chief minister, Mulayam Singh Yadav felt that continuation of puja would be risking the law and order situation in Uttar Pradesh because riots had happened after the Babri Masjid was demolished. So, in order to prevent any further escalation of violence, he put a seal on uh, the basement and disallowed puja from going on there. So that is the same path, which has been chosen this time to open it. That the court asked the district magistrate, why don't you open it? Because there was no judicial order to lock up that. It was an executive order. It was by this chief minister directed, and then through that it must have been implemented by the district magistrate. So the district magistrate in this case said, fine, you can open it and we can allow it. There will be no threat to the law and order situation. So that is how actually it was opened, and within hours of that, the puja started. This exactly the same way how it happened in Ayodhya in February 1986, when the court gave an order on the 31st of January, and within hours, the lock was opened and people started going inside for puja in the Babri Masjid. So the
If,
same thing has happened.
sir, if we read the, yeah, please go on, sir.
The point is that whether this tehkana is going to now be allowed by judicial means to become bigger and demolish the mosque, displace the Muslims from the possession that they have of the masjid. Let us understand, the Muslims have possession of that building. It is not like Ayodhya that they had lost the possession. So physical possession they have. So there is, at the moment, I do not see a judicial process by which this can be done easily, that the Muslims can be dispossessed of the that has happened in Ayodhya. I do not think this, unless the government brings in certain amount of other changes in law. That is how it can be done.
And do you believe that they will not do so, that they will not change the laws?
No, I cannot actually predict on what the BJP is going to do. I definitely
But
am.
in your opinion, what do you think they
So
will do? They will not do it.
in my opinion, they will keep this the what not to say, that keep this fire smoldering all the time.
Sir,
They would do
sir,
it because
sir,
this is
let
how.
me be very open, frank with you. Let me put it very bluntly to you. You have seen the condition of Muslims in the country since 2014, more so. Muslims are angered, they are hurt, they are bruised, yet they are silent. What, in your suggestion, should Muslim community do?
No, I think, in my suggestion, the Muslim community should reach out to the secular elements within the Hindu community and other
But
religious communities
but
also.
then the issue
And
is
that
then
is
the
how
issue
a
is the
joint platform
secular
must.
forces, the secular forces, even in public meetings, they are afraid to name the Muslim. Like we have seen the political parties, the Congress, the SP, TMC. If you look closely at their rallies, no leader, no secular leader in the political rally or on the stage, he says minority, he will say a Dalit, he will say a Sikh or the Jain, but he will never utter the word the Muslim.
We
So
can be.
how do a Muslim reach out to a secular person?
I think, secular persons are there in society. There are people, secular sections are existing in civil society. They may be numerically small, but then, as it is said, that there can be a crack in everything. Only then can you allow the light to go in. So there are cracks in the society also. You have to keep on hitting at those cracks so that the crack becomes
For how
bigger.
many
And
years we have to hit on those cracks to see the light?
there is no cure. It's like a disorder, from which there isn't a cure, but you have to keep on trying to improve the condition of life in that. That is the struggle. And you have to really look at not really the objective and actually being able to settle everything, but you have to keep on enjoying the process of trying to get back the secular order in society.
Sir, my
That is
last
in
question. Sir,
front of us.
my last question, because my Zoom now shows me last 7 minutes left. And
Hmm.
let me be again very blunt to you. Is India still a country for Muslims?
No, it definitely is a country for Muslims. That is why they decided not to go away. Just a few weeks ago, I had interviewed a very senior Muslim journalist, and I asked, that I have a question which I ask quite often. According to me, MS Sathyu's film Garam Hawa, which was made way back in 1974-75, is, according to me, the finest film in India that has been made on partition. In that, there is a character of Salim Mirza, which was portrayed by Balraj Sahni, the famous actor. He is actually a Muslim. He plays the role of a Muslim trader who's in the shoe business. And during partition, all his family members are slowly going away to Pakistan. Finally, he also decides that too bad, can't live. He is going back. When he is going to the Agra station, the tanga is in which he is going, it gets stopped at one place because there is a working class procession of Zindabad, Hindustan Zindabad, Hamari Mange Puri Karo, that kind of sloganeering is going on. He stops the tanga, gets down and joins that procession. So the question is that I think that the Salim Mirzas of India today still have to be part of the agitation and struggles of the toiling masses of this country. That is where the redemption is going to be. Going to Pakistan, going to some other third country is only going to be stopgap arrangement, because they will never be able to overcome the stab which is there in their own hearts, that this is their homeland.
So you are hopeful for the Muslims in this country?
Of course, if there is no hope, then I would not want to live.
And Muslims must reclaim their space through secular means.
They must reclaim the space in partnership with the secular elements, even if it is one person.
But even if it's one person, they have to reclaim this space.
Even if there is one person, they'll have to, in partnership with them, must reclaim the secular space and show that they have the utmost faith in the Indian Republic being what it has promised to them all the time.
Mr. Nilanjan, let me end this episode on this, that Muslims must be hopeful, they must reclaim their space with the secular forces, and they must be in the country and always struggle through the court of law.
Absolutely correct.
Mr. Nilanjan, absolute pleasure talking to me. Let me hold your book once again in my hand so that it reaches to the maximum readers. And I do hope that people buy this book and read it. Thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you so much.
Please subscribe to our channel Reportage and press the bell icon to remain updated.